It's Later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Let's talk about California and New York. In fact, I'll start with New York. And New York City Mayor Eric Adams, he has some splaining to do. He is in more than a little bit of trouble. Of course, yesterday, the indictment came down. Today, it was unsealed. And now we know what Mayor Eric Adams is up against. And he's already saying it's all political. I think he might even said it was a witch hunt. But he did say, I do remember, he's blaming the Biden DOJ, the Biden administration, how it's trying to get back at him for his rhetoric on migrants. It's kind of weird, but, that's what he's going with. And he says he's not going to step down. But here are the 5 counts Eric Adams is facing. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud, federal program bribery, and to receive campaign contributions from foreign nationals, wire fraud, garden variety, solicitation of a contribution by a foreign national, 2 counts, and just regular old bribery. And that's assuming that there aren't any superseding indictments because, a number of people caught up in this probe and they may be inclined to make a proffer, offer up some people, some information. So there may be more charges coming down the pike. You say, well, Mo, why are you talking about this? Well, this has national implications because the Democrats have to decide on a national level and also locally in New York, whether they're going to stand up and say, hey, Eric Adams, you have to step down. Okay, just like they did with Bob Menendez, all right? And also the Democrats are having a crisis of reputation in New York right now. You don't know this, or maybe you do know this, but let me remind you that it's not just Eric Adams, it's people in his administration. The interim police chief has resigned. The school chancellor has resigned. The whole city's falling back, falling apart. Cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. The Ghostbusters should be showing up anytime now. That's New York. That could swing the House. Yes, it's a local race, but the Democratic reputation in New York will impact congressional races. That's something very important to remember. Let me come to California now. Remember that guy, Steve Garvey? I barely remember him. It's like he just disappeared. I said when he got in the race that the Republicans aren't serious. I said Steve Garvey is welcome to prove me wrong. I said Steve Garvey is going to have to act as if that he is trying to actually appeal to independents and Democrats. Why? Because there are more registered Democrats in California than there are Republicans. There are more registered independents in the state than there are Republicans. Put them together, Democrats and independents are 2-to-1. To registered Republicans. There is no way that just all the Republicans liking Steve Garvey was going to get him elected in a statewide race. And I said he's going to have to make certain overtures. He would have to do media which wasn't friendly all the time. He would have to do more than just come on KFI between 1 and 4 p.m. He didn't choose to do that. Oh, he had a chance to come on with us. He just balked at it and ran from us. And I didn't ask after that. When we were there live at USC for the Senate debate, he was there. We were there. He scurried out. And so I knew at that point he wasn't serious. And here's how I also know he wasn't serious. Can you show me a time? Can you show me a place? Can you show me an example of him campaigning on the ground? Because you actually have to go to all the cities and counties all around the state. When you're campaigning for statewide office, that is what is required. I don't know if he has an actual campaign infrastructure. I couldn't tell you who his campaign manager is. I don't know if there's anyone working around him other than, I think, family members and friends. I'm being serious. I kind of know how this stuff works. He never had a serious campaign. Even former President Donald Trump said, there's no way he's going to win. Said it 2 weeks ago. He said, there's no way he's going to win without MAGA. Donald Trump won't even endorse him. So that ought to tell you he's caught in no man's land. In other words, MAGA's not supporting him. The Democrats are not supporting him. And the independents aren't supporting him. As of right now, he's down by 35 points. He'll probably lose by 40 or more. 40 or more. And here's the point of why I'm talking about this. I want the Republican Party to be competitive. I want the Republican Party to actually push Democratic leadership and actually vie for statewide offices. I said this time and time again. I said the Republicans should have put forth a candidate for the mayoral race. They didn't. They put forward Rick Caruso, who changed his party affiliation to Democrat, which only means that the Democrats would never embrace him. Never. Never. So I have to ask you, who is your serious candidate for governor? Oh, you don't have one. Who is your serious candidate for senator? Oh, you don't have one. But we'll always hear the complaints about how, well, we got the government we voted for, or we keep voting for these dumbass Democrats. No, that's not true. In a race of only one party, you don't have a real choice. And so we are relegated to whoever is running. You know, Mayor Karen Bass is going to have to be reelected if she wants to preside over the World Cup and also the Olympics in 2028. She talks about it like it's a foregone conclusion. Why? Because there is no Republican opposition confronting her. There's no one running for mayor. Nobody. If there is, it's an asterisk. Someone that no one knows about, and you have to start running for the office long before. You have to start creating these coalitions and constituencies and developing these relationships with communities years in advance. And if you're not doing it now, well, you're not going to be doing it next year, 2026, when the election is. You know, who is going to be the standard bearer for Republicans here in California for either a statewide office or here in the city of Los Angeles running for mayor? Who? You just can't trot out another person, a new person, and say, yes, this is going to be our candidate, and nobody knows who the hell they are. That's not how elections actually work. I gave Steve Garvey the opportunity to prove me wrong. I'm not even sure if he's even talking to anyone. He's trying to fundraise. I don't know what he's doing. I actually had to do a Google search on that dude to see where he was. There's nothing, absolutely nothing. Not a campaign appearance, not a fundraising dinner, not an interview, nothing. And when he loses, I am sure a lot of people will say, see, the Democrats cheated again. Or, see, that's why the California gets what it deserves. No, there's not serious opposition. If you want to change this state, and I desperately want this state to change, part of what has to happen, must happen, needs to happen, is that there is a viable Republican alternative. I would die for that. And we can't get it. Governor Gavin Newsom does what he wants. Why? Because there's nobody seriously opposing him. Karen Bass is doing what she wants. Why? Because there's no serious opposition. You want a better LA County, a better LA City, and a better California? Get some real damn candidates. It's Later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Oh, and by the way, we have a Metro update thanks to KFI's own Michael Monks, who joined us again. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI Mo Kelly. Another Metro update. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app, and joining us once again from the iHeartRadio studios in downtown Los Angeles is none other than KFI's own Michael Monks. How you doing, sir?
Hey, if it's iHeart's, they got to start paying my rent.
Look, you didn't have to tell everyone to give away the secret.
Well, I guess technically they do pay the rent, so I'm grateful to them.
You know, we need to stop meeting like this or people are going to talk.
Hey, I don't mind. A little 7 o'clock kiki every Friday or something. Yeah, it's good.
Well, we know there was a Metro board meeting today. Did we learn anything? Did anything change? Was there gnashing of teeth? Were there furrowed eyebrows? What?
It was sort of strange. This Metro board meeting was, of course, just their regularly scheduled monthly meeting where the full board gets together, and it just happened to fall a day after the latest tragedy aboard the system. Of course, just a quick recap, that Metro bus was allegedly hijacked by someone, and someone was shot and killed, a passenger on that thing. So a pretty tough story, and another challenging narrative emerging from the Metro system, and obviously very disappointing to those who govern the system, who happen to be meeting today. Additionally, Mo, before the board meeting, there was another press conference semi-related to Metro, but to transit and public transportation more broadly, encouraging people to participate in SoCal Transit Week next week. That also had a weird feeling to it because of what had just happened.
Wait. They're saying, please ride public transit as if yesterday didn't happen, or they're saying, look over here, don't look over there?
Another difficult, kind of awkward transition, because this was put on by various agencies, but a couple of county supervisors were there headlining it, Lindsay Horvath and Hilda Solis, and both acknowledged that, obviously this terrible thing happened this week. This announcement was scheduled prior to that happening, and SoCal Transit Week is next week, and it does include free rides on Metro and other transit agencies, including Metrolink, across the region on Wednesday as part of those events. But it was just sort of the weird dichotomy of it all, with this tragedy hanging in the air, this promotion of public transit taking place next week, announced today, and then the official board meeting that also happened. Now, at this board meeting, didn't learn a whole lot of new stuff. We just heard from each board member lamenting the latest tragedy and calling for more change. One thing that might irritate you a bit, I know it irritated our friend John Cobalt earlier this afternoon when I talked about it. Easy to do, but in this case, it was about the press conference that happened Wednesday afternoon, called by Mayor Bass, County Supervisor Janice Hahn, who chairs Metro, and the Metro organization itself. A lot of congratulations from the Metro board about what a good press conference it was. I was sort of struck by the amount of time that was spent by Metro board members talking about that was just such a great press conference and what a great job everyone
You're
did.
kidding me.
I'm not.
They're patting themselves on the back for the efficiency of a press conference? Is that what you're telling me?
A press conference where, certainly they shared their condolences and they gave an update on what had happened and outlined, the strategies that have been in place, but nothing new was learned from it. And it's the type of press conference you expect leadership to conduct when something terrible happens. So it just struck me as a reporter observing the Metro board that so much, not just a one-off, the first time it happened, it was like, okay, that's a little awkward, but multiple board members congratulating the organization for the press conference that they held about it. The other weird thing was from the earlier event in the morning, because Supervisor Hilda Solis and Supervisor Lindsay Horvath, as part of this announcement promoting public transit for next week, they were going to take the Metro to the board meeting because they're also on the Metro board. All the supervisors are. And they made a big deal about it. Hilda Solis suggested that, it demonstrates their commitment to believing that the system is safe. And Mo, this press conference was in Grand Park. And if you're familiar with the B line or the D line, both run through this and go to Union Station where the board meeting would be, it's the next stop.
It's one stop over. Yeah.
It's one stop. So it was a very weird day. Janice Hahn, the supervisor and chair of Metro, also rode the system into the board meeting today from San Pedro. So she had a longer commute and it was not uneventful. So one of the first buses she was on out of San Pedro, she reported broke down. And then when they brought a new bus for her and the rest of the passengers to get on, a homeless person disrupted it, and it would not move until that homeless person was removed. So she got a more authentic taste of what more of us are familiar with on the public transportation system.
Do we know any more, going back to yesterday, that hijacking, any information about the victim, the gunman, any relationship or connection between the gunman and the victim?
Not a lot of new details. Still waiting to find out what may have precipitated this, because we don't know if there was a relationship between this man accused of taking over the bus and who is charged with murder. Someone was shot to death on this bus. Was this a random act of violence? Was this some sort of targeted attack? Just very, very strange. Again, though, a lot of applause for the bus driver who was protected by one of those bus barriers. And that happened again today at the board meeting, where they thanked him for the way that he handled it, that he stayed calm and in control of the bus during the entire ordeal. I mean, it must have been terrifying not just to have somebody take over the bus, but to know that someone on the bus was already killed.
Before I let you go, I just want to make sure that I didn't miss anything in your report. From these two meetings today, did we get any type of clarity as far as any specific change, addition, or procedure which is going to be put in place immediately to better protect passengers or operators?
Not really. What we did learn about was, again, the emphasis on those barriers between drivers and the passengers. And those are apparently effective, because this was a very dangerous situation. And the bus driver was able to retain control. The goal that Metro has is to have those in all of their buses, which is more than 2,000 buses. They are currently at about 40%. So more than 800 buses have these barriers in. LA City Councilwoman Katie Yaroslavsky, who's also on the Metro board, said something interesting today, though, and it's that those are great for the driver. They don't protect the passengers.
Right.
And so what can be done about that? There's talk about these weapon detection technologies that do exist, and there is a pilot program currently underway at Union Station only. And there was conversation at the board meeting about how do we roll that out across the system a little more quickly. That may be updated at the next board meeting. That was the request. But what does that look like? Not sure yet. Does that only work in stations? Can that work on buses? Even if it does work on a bus, what does that mean? If Mo Kelly gets on a bus armed and it's detected, so what?
Okay, slow down. First, I'm not getting on a bus, period. Let's dead that right now. So we don't.
How are you going to hang out in the downtown bureau?
Look, I will get an Uber. I'll get Stefan, to drive me. I don't know. Maybe I'll get Mark Ronner to pick me up, but I'm not getting on Metro.
That's a big negative.
Yeah. Well, then I guess I'm going to have to walk my ass down there, because I'm not getting on a Metro bus armed or unarmed.
Understood.
Michael Monks?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Always a pleasure. See you next time.
Be safe. It's Later with Mo Kelly. When we come back, we're going to tell you what's happening at Disney. They had the start of major layoffs today, and see what that means either for the amusement parks or their programming or both. That's next.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Disney late yesterday, it was announced that Disney was laying off several hundred corporate level employees, not necessarily I'll say lower staff, but corporate management staff. About 300 people across various corporate departments, as it reads. And if you've been following what has been happening with Disney on a employment level, these are the latest layoffs, but they're not the only layoffs. You may remember that Disney let go about 140 employees in its television division just a few months ago, in July, as a matter of fact. In May, Pixar laid off 175 employees. But all that pales in comparison to what happened last year, in which Disney cut some 7,000 jobs from its global workforce. These jobs we're talking about today are specifically with Disney here in the United States. And if you're wondering why, well, is it because Disney went so woke? No. Actually, the movies are doing fine. Because Bob Iger came back, made changes in the movie schedule, making sure that better product was coming out, the movies have done fine. What has been decreasing is the theme park. Theme park revenues down 6%. And Bob Iger made it very clear when he came back to take over for Bob Chapek that he wanted to make sure that Disney was moving in the direction of shoring up their theme park attractions. That's where they wanted to focus their energies and their future. The movies were doing fine. And they're also pulling back from the television aspect. When I say television, I'm talking about ABC. I'm talking about ESPN. Disney Plus is growing. So for all of the complaints about the supposed change in direction of Disney programming because you think that their politics don't align with yours, that hasn't really had a measurable impact. It's the theme parks which have struggled this past year. And also, as we go into winter, they're probably going to have to revise their projections for that as well, because theme parks obviously do better in spring and summer than they do fall. But as far as revenue projections, Disney met its revenue projections. So this is about shoring up, which was already moving in the big picture sense, no pun intended, moving in the right direction. Theme parks were not, movies were, streaming was. And yes, I'm quite sure Deadpool and Wolverine had something to do with it. Quite sure Inside Out 2 had something to do with it. So if you look at the totality of what Disney is doing, they're okay, but they're changing their direction and their focus ever so slightly. And I'm not a hater. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy going to Disneyland a few weeks ago. It is a great time. But remember, and we talked about this, when Bob Iger took over, he specifically changed the pricing structure of what was going on at the theme parks. At all the levels, he said they were overpriced, and he thought if he would diminish some of those prices, it would be more of a value for people like you and me who want to bring a family. It's still cost prohibitive, but still there was an acknowledgement of what can be done there to make it more attractive and appealing for families to come to the theme parks. Because Bob Chapek took the company in a completely different direction. They were churning out movies probably before they were ready. They were churning out series of an inferior caliber. And also the Disney brand took a hit. But now Bob Iger has turned a lot of that around. The last part of that is turning the theme park revenue around. And it'll get there. But Disney has been trimming a lot of the fat over the past year and a half. And it would seem as if there's more light at the end of the tunnel than anything. So the theme parks got to do better. TV, they're probably pulling back. They'll still have their streaming. And I got to differentiate between TV, linear TV, which is ABC and ESPN, with their streaming properties. We talked about the bundles between Hulu and also Disney Plus. Those are doing fine from what I read. But the linear TV, they're pulling back. I don't know why they have, as of yet, to sell ABC and ESPN, because it doesn't seem like they're trying to do anything with either of them. It's a part of their IP, but it's not like they're trying to grow it. If you look at the ESPN slate of programming, it's very un-Disney-esque. If you look at what ABC is doing, they have a few hit TV shows, but it doesn't seem like Disney is really pushing them as part of the House of the Mouse. But 300 employees have been laid off today, but what it looks like, this might be the last layoff for quite some time. It's Later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app, and we're going to keep it right here with the Disneyland theme. Did you hear about the story about the woman who was dragged out of Disneyland and arrested, trying to get in her crumb snatchers for free? Now, I think as a former Disney delinquent, I am the best person, the most qualified to weigh in on appropriate behavior at Disneyland, unless someone here has also been arrested and detained and put in a Disney cell. Stefan, you?
No, sir.
Mark, you?
Statute of limitations has expired.
Yeah, same with me, but I'm saying...
Answer the question. Good Lord.
Have you ever been in Disneyland jail, yes or no?
I'll consult my attorney and get back to you.
Sweet fancy Moses.
Answer the damn question.
Oh, look at the time.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Some things are really, really simple. Either you have a valid ticket or you do not. There is no in between. And if you don't have a valid ticket, you must leave the premises. Either your kids, when going to Disneyland, are actually under the age of 3, or they are not. there is no in between. Disneyland's policy allows kids under three to enter Disneyland or Disney California Adventure free of charge, provided, here it is, the caveat, provided they're joining someone who holds a valid park admission and reservation. So it's a both and. You, as the adult, guardian, parent, you have to have a valid ticket for admission. There's no in between. And your crumb snatchers have to be under the age of 3. There is no in between. And if there is some sort of discussion or discrepancy or some sort of conversation about the validity of your ticket, and it then escalates to the point that law enforcement comes, you probably should comply. If only because you're not ever going to win at Disneyland. You are not. Because again, either you have a valid ticket or you do not. And the moment they ask you to leave the premise, you will have to leave the premise. This woman did not, and she was escorted from California Adventure Park after reportedly failing to show ID to peace officers inside the park. And I know something about peace officers inside the park because I've been kicked out of Disneyland. I've been put in Disneyland jail. Who better to talk about this than a former Disney felon?
Please tell me Disneyland jail is at least fun and has some fun stuff in it, like a fake skeleton in one of those hanging cage things.
Well, the one in 1985-ish was an actual holding cell with a single bench, no bathroom, clear Lexan glass. It is an actual cell. And this is in the 1980s. There were tons of undercover armed police back in the 1980s. So just know when you go to Disneyland, they're everywhere. Don't think that they're not.
Are they armed with seltzer bottles?
No, these ones that I saw, because they were coming in, changing out their radios, and you can see their guns. They were using revolvers back then, but absolutely armed. Absolutely. In the event some hooligan like me got loose, dropping ketchup and mustard on people from the sky gondola.
Well, we can't have that.
No. And they put me out. But my point is, Disneyland does not play around at all. And if you're at the front gate, either have a ticket or not. And obviously, Disneyland said you do not have a valid ticket. You have 2 kids with you. That's not the time to make a scene. That's just the time you're just going to have to go home. And if law enforcement gets involved, talk about should have complied, that's about the time you're going to need to comply or leave. And this woman clearly was not going to leave and was not going to comply. And I'm not going to go into all the rumors about whether she's done this before and other times. I'm just talking about this particular incident. And the police say that she resisted cooperation with park staff, which escalated to police being called. And it's real simple. And there's video of the moment. I would feel mortified if I'm there with my kids and I'm embarrassing them. For me, if I'm going to Disneyland as an adult with 2 children, I know I'm going to spend a lot of money. If I can't afford the ticket or afford my children's tickets, then I'm just going to leave, because I would think that it's more important for your children. If you want them in the park that bad, then maybe you're just going to have to fork over the money, because you're probably going to buy some food while you're there. If you don't have the money to go, then you shouldn't be there in the first place. But if you're going to go there and it's going to come down to whether you're going to get in the park or not and your children, why would you make a scene? Why would you do that in front of your kids? But she did that anyhow, and they put her out. And there's video of the children crying and being escorted away, and mom's in handcuffs, and everyone's saying, oh my God, all of it was avoidable. Either you have a ticket or you don't. And if you haven't been to Disneyland lately, it's high tech. They scan your face. They will, if you have their Disney bracelet, you can put your ticket digitally on your Disney bracelet and they go boop, and they can scan you in. It's real simple, provided that you're there legitimately. That's why it's very hard for me to believe that this woman had a legitimate claim to be in the park and looking at her children, they didn't look under the age of 3. They looked like they were old enough to know what was going on. They were aware. Like, they looked closer to 45, actually. I don't know if they're about 3, but I would say 45. Don't quote me on that. They seemed very mature for their age. They were aware and cognizant of mommy getting arrested and getting put out the park. So they started crying. Here's the next part of the story. This woman, I don't know her name, but her name's like Janissa, Jalisa, something. Janine. She's now on social media promising to release her version of events. Why don't you just go ahead and put up a video of your version of events? Why is it you need us to wait an extra 2 or 3 days? Either you had a valid ticket or you didn't. When we buzz into this building every single night, either we have a valid badge to buzz in or we don't. There's no in between. And if we try to get in an unauthorized way, security will meet you. They will greet you. They will escort you out. And if that's not enough, they will call Burbank police on you. It's real simple. And for all that the grief that Disney may get in the news, this is something that is clearly not their fault. And I just wish it were Mark Ronner so I could see him getting hauled off to jail with his kids crying.
That seems really unnecessary. Were these kids smoking cigars? Because it's a dead giveaway.
No, they just seem obviously over the age of 3. That's all.
Did they look like they had beard shadows?
No. They just looked like they had finished, I don't know, graduate school.
Just polished off a couple martinis before they hit the park?
It's like, you don't look like, if you've ever worked at a bar or something like that, and you've worked at a bar, and you have someone who walks in and is like, okay, you're not really 21, are you? Okay. Are we going to have to go through this whole exercise? All right. Let me see your ID because I know you can't be more than 18. Show me your fake ID. Go ahead. I know you had that instance happen to you, Mark.
A little bit. Yeah. It's easier to spot than you would guess.
Yeah. I remember my fake ID, my first one. It was not very good.
Oh, I had one of those too. It wasn't even a legit driver's license. It was an Alaska state resident card. and I was such a brazen idiot. If somebody turned me down, instead of walking out and being like, oh, okay, I was like, no, I demand to see the manager right now. Of course it never worked.
I had a California driver's license. I was 15. The license said I was 24. And if you're not old enough to remember what the old California driver licenses looked like, it was like photo paper. And I used an X-Acto knife on some other legitimate license to cut and paste, literally cut and paste.
Yeah, you could do that back then with those and with passports,
yes.
The whole Day of the Jackal thing, which right. You cannot do anymore.
It wasn't laminated, right? It was just straight paper?
No, it was straight like photo paper. And you could cut and paste, and that's what I did. And it fooled no one, but I had ID, wink, wink. And I remember I went to Anchor Liquor, which just closed recently for good. It was a monument in my community at the corner of Sepulveda, Vermont. Went into Anchor Liquor. They knew us because we would always buy candy in the liquor store. And one day I jumped from 15 to 24. And it was a bad hatchet job on that California ID. And I remember the guy looked at the ID, looked at me, looked at the ID, looked at me, looked at the ID. He said, so when's your birthday? And of course I memorized all the information on it. And I said, is there a problem? Because at that age, I had almost a mustache. My voice had changed. I thought I could, play older than I actually was.
Well, yeah, it's what spies call their legend. You got to get it memorized before you go do anything. Yeah.
Right. So I had all my information memorized. And then he said, well, something like the price, like, okay, $3.59. It's like, he just said, okay, you win. You put all this effort into this. You've memorized the information. It was 1983 or 84. It was much different time.
And it was probably would have been more work for him to have taken the license, call the cops,
yes.
Bring him in, tell him what happened. So, yeah.
It's not worth it. But there was a time I let my friend use my license when I was going to El Torito, one of those places, and there was a bar area. And then they figured out, it's like, okay, not all black people look alike. That's not you. So they took my driver's license. I remember that.
Well, it was sporting of the one clerk to accept it. I appreciate that.
So all I'm saying is you can't put one over on Disneyland or wrap all this up. The kids were not under 3, and the mother probably did not have a valid ticket. And then she wanted to show her ass and not show her ID to the police.
Uncle Walt doesn't mess around with that stuff.
It's Later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640 live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
What you need to know and when you need to know it.
KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live.